Yes, sir. I have the motherboard exposed, and I'm going to take a crack at it. I don't know how far I'll get with it, but I've never worked on anti-gravity circuitry. Uh, I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't been told. With my compartmentalized clearance, I don't have access to the source of a lot of the things that I work on, and I wanted to assure you that I'll take a good shot at it. First thing I've got to do is obviously get power to it. I don't. I have it on an electrostatic um, discharge plate that'll keep anything from getting uh, electrostatically disrupted. So just put on some gloves here. I was told not to do this in a clean room setup, so that's fine. But I think it's a little strange that I'm authorized to work on this device. The system came off of an aircraft. For those of you that are listening to the ultimate recording of this session, this is a system from a top secret aircraft that was involved in a little bit of an accident, shall we say. I think I'm authorized and cleared to say that upon landing at Area 51. This piece of hardware here is the motherboard for the anti-gravity system on the LR-16. A very, very black product, originally produced by Skunkworks. It was handed off to the military, and now I've got the system in play. The first thing we need to do is just take a look at the device, because I have to get in here, and apparently the processor in here, which is this area, this device here is the processor unit, is not communicating with the hover circuitry, which allows the craft to hover. No one's ever seen this. There are very few people that are authorized to see it, but I was able to observe it. And I noticed right from the get-go that it has to be a circuitry problem. Let me just get this probe here. Let's take a look. There has to be a circuitry problem in this area here for the hovering options and features to not work properly. The vehicle was quaking quite a bit and was not maintaining a clear, smooth hover, which is a problem with anti-gravity circuitry. So we're going to take a look at this source and how this series of circuits is communicating with the processor, because there's something going on. But the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to power up the unit. So let's give that a shot. The first thing I think I'm going to have to do is strip some of these leads here. Let me take a look at that and just see if we can strip them. Get my strippers lined up here and get where we need to be, and we'll get these stripped. Get this section plugged into the relay board back here. I have a board there. We'll just kind of fit them in there and clamp them in place, so that's good. Now what we're going to do is just run what appears to be what looks like Ethernet cable, but it's actually a power source. So we're going to definitely deal with that. The next thing we need to do is we've got to put our systems in play here where we can actually observe what's going on. It's sort of like doing a CAT scan of the unit. And the way that you do that is we attach several devices to the unit, similar to a power setup. And we're going to place this device right on top here. And well, actually, you know what, that's just a magnifying device. We don't really need that with these optics. So we'll place that on the reciprocal 2562 circuit. Yeah, I need to zip tie this thing down here a little bit better. I've got 3 of these. let's just get this zip tied, and I think we should be good to go. And we'll have that bundle sort of out of the way here. So as we were talking about the processor, which is here, let me just take a dimensional. I've just got to measure this here. If I can, let me just get the ruler and just take a little measurement of this particular distance here, because I'm looking at what I think is 2.5, yes, about 2.5 centimeters. Let me just walk this distance down here. We're going to find that this is going to be 6, 5.5, and then we got 2.3 to this board here. This board here is an amplification. This section of the board, I should say. This is the amplification unit, which is modulated in the cockpit by essentially a throttle, a lever. So this area here, which again controls the hovering, communicates with this device, which is essentially the throttle or controller in the cockpit, and that interfaces with the processor, where all the magic occurs and the anti-gravity properties take place. This particular feeder here, this set of lines, are all the devices, or all the gimbal units that are used to manipulate the craft while it's in anti-gravity mode. So this is the circuitry. We've got the hovering area, the hovering processing and conversion quadrant, which communicates with this processor, which is the in-cockpit throttle, which communicates with the processor, and the processor obviously articulates each of the gimbal settings on the craft itself. Let me just check this measurement here, because I think this needs to be, I'm wondering if that needs to be moved. This is out of alignment. I can't quite tell. Let me do a spatial configuration with the transmitter. Spatial configuration evaluation. I'm reading that it seems to be okay. Let me take that off. I've got to pull that off while I'm doing this, actually. No, it's transmitting back to the link system that it's fine. So I'm not sure what's going on here. Put that scanning device on. Let me just take a look at the monitor for a second over here. It appears to be, everything appears to be connected. There are no interruptions in the circuitry, which is quite strange. I really find that hard to believe. But we may need to put some insulator panel under this. Let me just get some insulating panel underneath this section here. There we go. That's better. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Do you have a polonium source plate over there? No, polonium source plate. The polonium source plate is an energy source. The way it's encapsulated in this stainless steel matrix, it's completely safe to handle this. It's a polonium energy source, but these are tablets, and you can basically use 1, 2, you can stack them. And these tablets are essentially the power units for the craft, the aircraft. While it's in hovering mode, the polonium source, the anti-gravity system obviously requires an enormous amount of energy, so the polonium discs supply a huge amount of nuclear energy, radiation-free. This is a very, very highly classified methodology of creating wafers of energy sources. So I'm going to implant 2 of these in the device. The first thing I'm going to do is just take this cap off of here, and I'm going to just drop them in place. So what I've got now is I've got the energy that would ordinarily be utilized with the anti-gravity device in place. So the anti-gravity system that we're looking at here, let me just check this over here, make sure that we're not getting any distal feedback. at the periphery, because you don't want distal feedback where you don't. All the connections appear to be correct. Let me just again scan it and look at the monitor. And that appears to be good. There is no distal feedback. Okay, so we've got the system energized just as it would be in the craft, as if it were flying or hovering. Remember, with an anti-gravity system, there is no fuel. The craft actually is weightless. And when you have a weightless craft, actually less than zero weight, the craft is free to move about merely by shifting the weight of the vehicle. We can now unplug the auxiliary. Let me just unplug this auxiliary power source. Hand me that number 6 probe bristle brush. I just want to make sure of something here. There's a little piece of particulate matter, and I'm trying to find it. It's actually right here. I noticed that there was a little area. Let me just take a probe and see if I can find something here. Yes. Yes. There it is. Okay. Let me get in there and just take a look at this. I'm having a problem with the sensing device. And I want to get that started. Just bear with me for a second while I just do it. Ream that out a little bit if I can, just a tiny bit. Okay, that gives a much better, much higher resolution. I'm looking at that number 16. Could you hand me that number 16 probe, please? Thank you. Okay, I just want to get in here now because now we're going to take a look at this circuitry. Okay, so we're going to scan that. I think I have found the problem. It actually is this capacitor right here. This capacitor. Damn, that capacitor is always a problem. I'll have to report to the command that this capacitor here, which I think we get from Toth Industries, is the root cause of the problem. I'm getting scans that are showing me that we have issues with that. Let me just take this off. Let me just scan this over here. Do the impeller hookup. Attach in place. Yes, it is that. Indeed, that. I'll be darned. It's always that problem. It's the same thing. Every time they bring one of these anti-gravity systems back to me, we are dealing with the same problem. All right, so what we're going to have to do is recharge the positive pole of this device. Give me the number 25 probe, please. Carbon probe. Yeah, the carbon. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so using this carbon probe, this is made of pure carbon. We're going to just tap this. I'm looking at the monitor, which is off screen here, but yep, it is an attachment problem. I'll be darned, as simple as that. Simple attachment problem. Okay. We're just going to do a little soldering here. Believe it or not, it's as simple as this. Sometimes you go back to your basic ancient technology, and you can solve the simplest problems. And we're going to do this. So put a little solder on the end of this unit here. Just a little bit of solder. Ooh, that's plenty hot. Now we're going to take the carbon probe, and we're going to pull off. This carbon probe is capable of pulling off literally atoms. I'm going to pull off 62 atoms of the flux material and reattach that flux material right here. Would you have the number 17 probe, please? Number 17. Yeah, that's good. We're going to take this right here and just work on this and try to get that back in there. Move it a little bit. All I have to do is touch it. The carbon probe automatically seals the 62 atoms of flux material in place. So we've reset this processor. And I think that's probably the solution to the problem. I think what we had was sort of a shaky footing, if you will, on this particular processor. Again, communicating with our capacitor, rather. This capacitor, part of the hovering system, communicating with the main processor. These are the gimbal controls. And this little piece of electronics right here is the actual communicating device with the throttle inside the cockpit. So we've got all four components appear to be intact. I've got a little issue with this switch here. Let me just check. Number 16 probe, please. Actually, hand me the medical scissors. Let me just see, because I like these medical scissors make good little, almost like miniature pliers, but there's a switch here, and the switch appears to be arced a little bit. Get a measurement here. We'll see what's going on, because I don't got to play this. Trying to figure out what's here. 2 millimeters. It appears to be. Could that be right? Pull up the manual. Page 32, quadrant 6, and that's going to be switch settings. And we're looking at switch number C62. I know this by heart because every time I turn around, I'm replacing the C62. I could try to bend it, but I have to be more precise than that. Give me the ionic scanning device, please. Let's put this in place here. Set it for 0.2 millimeters, actually. Let's do it. Okay, ready? And nope, didn't go. Are we plugged in? We are wired in, yes. We're not hardwired in. I don't have feed, or I don't have power to that. Let me just... I gotta do a little connection here. Just bear with me. I'm gonna take these and just do a quick bundling here. Crazy as it sounds, I'm just gonna put an old wire nut on it. Whoops. Let's see, we've got feed now with this thing and just see what we can get. It looks like I've got... All right, let's try it again. We're going to go for 0.02 millimeters. And ready? Okay, according to the monitor, that's reset. So again, just as I thought, there was a secondary problem. This system is great. This system is working fine now. This board should work perfectly. We put it back in the craft. Make a note that this 270 reduction unit needs to be replaced. Yeah. Hammer the carbon probe. Let's take a look at that. It's no longer depressible, and the 270 is definitely on this. So let's go with that serial number. 2621515 NCR according to the monitor. Yes. Yes. Okay, great. All right. So what we've got here is essentially problem solved. We've adjusted the swing out of this switch, swing out the aperture. And you'll notice that when this piece here, this metal piece, moves across this plane, we're getting a power loss. We're getting a power flux and power shift. Yeah, these polonium units, I'll be darned. Look at the monitor. This is discharged. Yes, this is discharged. Well, I tell you what, let's just work with what we've got because, you know, the anti-gravity system has to work when there's little or no power in the system, and it appears to be working fine. So we'll just note that we're sort of low on fuel, if you will. But I think we're going to be fine. This Doppler switch here. Did you know this Doppler switch was bad? Order one. This is a DDD04F423F68. This one, similar to that unit. Doppler switches. Every time you turn around, you need a Doppler switch replacement. It's crazy. Okay, so I think we're going to take a final look. That's what we're getting stuff. This magnetic influence in our midst here. I think we're going to take a final scan just to make sure that this piece here, carbon probe, please. This piece is good, functional. Gimbal controls to the throttle are great. Main processor intact. Switch across the flux plane of this unit here is good. We can take away the anti-static material underneath. Let's just go ahead and remove that anti-static material. All right. Let's go ahead and get that out of there. And let's sleeve the device. Let's sleeve the whole motherboard again. Let's get that sleeve in. Okay. All right. Is this the correct size sleeve? Yes, should be. Yeah, it is, yes. So let's get this back in place here. I think we're going to be in good shape. Okay, so I think we've got everything we need. I'm happy with the result. I think that the system, once we get it back on the aircraft, tell you what, when do they plan this? When do they plan on getting this back into the aircraft? Tomorrow? Okay. If they do it today, I'm a little concerned about getting it over to the lab and have an anti-static run on it. So let's do that. Yeah, I can scan it. Yeah, let me scan it real quick. I'm looking at the monitor. It appears to be all good. I'm ramping it up so I can focus a little bit tighter. I think that's good. I like it. I like it. I'm very satisfied with it. Anti-gravity problem solved. We'll be able to get this back on our aircraft and get it out of Area 51 back onto mission duty. So I'm very satisfied with the result. It was a little simpler than I thought. We didn't really have to deactivate the motherboard. Just a few little quirky things with it. So I'm very pleased with the result. So that'll end the transmission and end this training footage with regards to the SM7928681132 Toth anti-gravity unit.